Hi, this is Shupriyo from shupriyopanda.com and welcome to part 4 of RBI Grade B Interview Preparation Series. We have already talked about how to prepare, about my marks, and about what to fill in the biodata form that you have to submit to RBI. What happened to me during my preparation was that there were so many sources which we had to refer to actually get a hold of all of this information that it became quite inconvenient. So what I'm trying to do is give all the economic news to you in a condensed manner so you don't have to waste your time hunting for the information. So let's jump right into it. So the first news event that I want to talk to you about is the December 2019 Consumer Price Index. Now, as you have read in the news, CPI has hit 7.35%. Now, this is the highest that it has been in 5 years. The last time that CPI was this high was back in July 2014. So you can understand what a huge economic news this is. And there is a high chance that the panel will ask your opinion about this. And another thing which is quite tied to this news is that the WPI or the Wholesale Price Index has shot to 2.59%. Now this is a 7th month high. Now both of these things are quite important inflation markers that we use in the economy to gauge the inflation level, the price levels. So you can understand that if both of these are rising, it does not augur well for the economy. I'll just show you a clipping of a news item. So this is about the CPI that I was talking about, 7.35%, and this is about the WPI. Now, when these kinds of news events come out in the newspapers, there's a lot of discussion and the important things get hidden. So I'll tell you what exactly you need to remember about both of these news items. So the first thing is the CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index. It reflects the retail inflation level of the economy. As you know, RBI uses CPI in its calculations in the Monetary Policy Committee. We'll get to it. So it has reached a 5-year high. Another thing to note is that since the last 3 months, the CPI level has consistently shot over 4%, which is the inflation targeting band that the RBI currently has. It has a 4 plus minus 2% tolerance. We were still in the 6% range till a few months ago, but now as you can see, it has shot up above 7%. So the RBI must take immediate action to this effect. So why is this happening? One of the chief reasons for this happening is that there has been a double-digit food inflation. So food inflation has reached about 14.12%. And another thing is that the core inflation has also increased quite a lot in December 2019. You have to understand that core inflation is the CPI figure minus the food and the fuel aspects. So the food and the fuel aspects in CPI are very variable. So once you put those two figures into the CPI, there's a lot of fluctuation. But even if you remove those two figures, then also we are seeing that the core CPI has actually increased. To add to this, we also have the CSO GDP estimate of the 5%. That they have estimated for FY 2019-2020. So seeing the entire gamut of this picture, you have to remember that there is a Monetary Policy Committee meeting which is coming up in February 6, and in that meeting there will probably be no rate cuts because of this. So understand this, that because there is a high inflation, we cannot cut the rate right now. If RBI cuts the repo rate at this point of time, the inflation will spiral out of control. So if the panel asks you about it, you can say that the rates should be held steady at this point of time. And about the WPI you have to understand it's a producer index. So it is measuring the inflation from the producer's angle. And the interesting thing is that a surge in WPI might not always be a bad thing, because if it surges, it means that the producers are actually getting more money. So a surge in WPI can actually be good. But when is it good? It's good when the surge is because of a manufacturing output. So if the manufacturing is growing and your WPI is increasing, that means that the companies, the firms, they have more money, they are getting more collections, and they have more money to invest into the economy. So the economy will be growing. However, in this case, about the report that has been recently released, it says that the WPI is at a 7-month high of 2.59%, and the chief reason is not a manufacturing spurt. The reason for the rise is a rise in the prices of food products. So vegetables and pulses, the rise in the prices of these commodities has actually increased the WPI. And also there has been a rise in the price of ginger, onion and potatoes. So these are staple foods of our population, and because of the rise of these things there has been a hit on the WPI. Now that is the chief reason for the rise of WPI, which corresponds with the reason for the rise of CPI as well. However, in WPI there is another reason, which is the telecom tariffs. As you know, recently there has been a price war in the telecom sector, and Jio, Airtel and Vodafone have all revised their prices upwards, and because of this revision of prices it has also hit WPI, and it has contributed to a little bit increase of the WPI. And another thing that has actually decreased the inflation is the manufacturing and the fuel inflation. Subdued manufacturing and fuel inflation have both caused a decline in the WPI. Both of them were negative in December. However, that decline has not contributed too much into the decrease of the WPI. It is still quite high, and so now you know the reason why both of these indices are quite high and why it might impact us going forward. So I hope I was able to explain to you why both of these indices are high. If you have any more doubts, please write it down in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer you. So let's move on to the next news item. So the next news item is the quarter 2, which is the September quarter GDP growth. The GDP growth rate for that quarter has come out as 4.5%. We already talked about this in the previous video where we discussed about the hot topics. So I'll not go too much into it. Just remember that the CSO forecast for the financial year 2019 to 20 has been 5%. And the decline that is happening, it's a huge and unprecedented decline. It is a 6-quarter decline, and it's the longest decline spell in 23 years. So all of these three news items that we are covering, this impact the economy as a whole. So with a combined picture of these three indices, we can understand that the economic growth of India is not at par. So it's below what we are capable of. So the panel might ask you your opinion about all of these aspects. The next news item is about Dr. Michael Debabrata Patra, and Dr. Michael Patra, as you know, he was in a monetary policy committee for quite a long amount of time. He has been pronounced as the new deputy governor. He had already been an executive director at RBI, and if you remember, since Viral Acharya had resigned a few months back, this post was lying vacant. So right now, who are the 4 deputy governors of RBI? One is BP Kanungo, the second is NS Vishwanathan, the third is MK Jain, and the fourth, right now he has been appointed, is Michael Patra. So these are the 4 deputy governors of RBI. Now another thing to note is that Michael Patra will be handling the monetary policy committee things. I'll just bring up a table that shows the portfolios of all of these 4 deputy governors. So just take a look at this picture, pause it and read it if you need to. So as you see from the table, Dr. Michael Patra will be replacing BP Kanungo as the Deputy Governor in charge of the monetary policy. Now please understand that BP Kanungo is also in the Monetary Policy Committee. He is not going away from the committee. However, he will no longer be the Deputy Governor in charge of monetary policy. So that's the only thing that changes. Apart from that, the Monetary Policy Committee does not have any changes as of now. So moving on to the next thing, it's about the RBI norms for card security. Now for a long time, there has been a high incidence of credit card and debit card frauds. As all the bankers amongst you will be knowing, we get a lot of cases of people having lost 50,000, 20,000, 30,000 each and every day at the banks. And it is quite difficult to solve these cases because resolution is usually not possible. The money is stolen and it is redirected through many accounts. Sometimes it is taken out of India. So seeing this, RBI understood that there is a high incidence of frauds in this sector, and they have laid down some new security rules for the cards. So before you can understand the rules, you must understand the 3 different types of card usages that they have presented in that circular. So there are 3 types of transactions that you must understand. So the first thing is the card not present domestic and international transaction. The second is the card present international transaction, and the third is the contactless transaction. So these are the 3 types of transactions that have been mentioned in that circular. Keep a note of it. And what does the circular actually say? So the circular says 3 things. The first thing is that when new cards will be issued to the customers by the card issuers, only domestic POS, point of sale, and domestic ATMs will be enabled. So other than these things, you cannot do anything with that card. You cannot do any kind of international transactions, and all of these three transactions that you can see, card not present, card present, and contactless transaction, these three will be deactivated by default. This is the first thing. The second thing is about existing users who are already having these cards. So for these users, the issuers have been given some leeway and they can take a call based on their risk perception. So if they think that the existing card users might be susceptible to frauds, they can directly switch off these three transactions. And if they do not think that, then they do not need to do anything. But another thing has been mentioned, that if there is an existing card which has not availed of any of these three types of transactions, then the issuers must deactivate them, and it's a mandatory thing. And the third thing that has been mentioned is that the card issuers must have a 24/7 card switch on or switch off system. So anytime that you want to make these three transactions open or closed, you have the liberty to do it through an app or through online methods, and it should be accessible at all points of time. And if these changes are taking place in your cards, you must be notified by an email or by an SMS. So as you see, it's a very strict and a comprehensive guideline of the card security systems. Just keep a note of a final thing, that there are two exemptions to these rules: prepaid gift cards and those which are used at mass transit systems do not need to conform with any of these rules. So that's the only thing that has been exempted. That's all about the 5 important economic news events. If you like this video, please share it with your friends. Please leave a like. And if you want me to cover more of these types of content so that you can get the economic news in a condensed manner, please let me know in the comments down below. I'll see you in the next video.